All right, so excited to be with you all today. Really decided to do some interviews for this amazing community, Chanel Vintage Community Conversation. And I have met so many beautiful people through the Instagram vintage community, vintage fashion, vintage Chanel, Chanel community. It's just been incredible. And, it was really during the time of COVID, I know so many of you feel this way. I feel like we've just really connected with like-minded people all over the world. And in that quest for knowledge, which is definitely me, you can see all the books and catalogs behind me. I'm constantly researching and learning about this amazing hobby of mine. And I met incredible people, including Lori, who has joined me today. Lori, thank you so much for being on.
Aw, well, thank you for thinking of me. I hope I don't disappoint.
Absolutely, absolutely. And her Instagram is PetuniaPeacockVintage. So she'll share a little bit about that. But what we're going to be doing in these interviews is I feel like so many people from all over the world have little nuggets of knowledge in our area of, again, what we love. And I thought, what if I gather these people and do these interviews and we all can just abundantly learn together? So how does that sound, Lori?
Sounds awesome. Thank you,
Well,
because I learned so much
absolutely.
from so many others, so it's great.
I'm not going to say I may have the most beautiful YouTube or the most beautifully edited, but we'll have some great information here. So that will be fun.
And fun. Have some fun.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I learned about you in our conversation prior to this interview was that not only your love of vintage Chanel, which you have a beautiful collar on,
Yeah.
choker necklace, but you also just your love of vintage jewelry in general. And so we're going to definitely share some other brands that you may not even be aware of. But first, I want them to get to know you, Lori. So a little bit
Okay.
about you, and when did this all start, this love of this vintage jewelry?
The love of the vintage jewelry started probably about a decade and a half ago. Um, I was never I was never a jewelry gal. I had my one watch, I had my little studs, and I was happy with that and my wedding ring. And I was searching for something for my husband to give me for Christmas. And I don't remember what I was plugging in for search, probably vintage. And I came across some links for vintage Chanel, and it just happened that way,
And
quite
what did
simply.
you love about it? So, there's obviously some of the more contemporary pieces and the vintage pieces. What drew you to it?
I I I I think definitely the vintage, not the contemporary. I wasn't super aware of Chanel other than I had a couple bags and a couple of pair of shoes. But I love the fact that the vintage is harder to find, and usually there's one. Maybe two or three, around the world if you search your heart out for something. And I like to have things that other people don't.
Yeah, the hunt, right? The
The
thrill of the
hunt.
hunt. Well, and
Yeah.
that is definitely what I've learned from those that definitely know more than me in this area. And they said that, and again, not that there's anything wrong with the contemporary pieces, but they produce more of them today. They produced a lot fewer of them in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s.
They did. And also not to bash, but the old saying, they don't make them like they used to.
For sure. And what are some things that, well, and I guess just kind of backtracking, because I kind of jumped into this, but I actually met Lori by making a purchase. So that's how I met her. And that was goodness.
Few years ago.
Yeah. I mean, it was before COVID. So it was before that. And it was this. Dun, 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 dun.
And I've
Tell us,
never found it again. Oh,
you've never found him again?
no, no. That was one time I got those just from a collector who didn't wear them anymore. And I thought about not putting them up and keeping them for myself, because I I do that sometimes.
I think I would do that too.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, maybe this one needs to stay in my drawer, in my collection. But I wore them a few times, and they're spectacular. They're one of the most asked about pieces of vintage Chanel ever. And it's an ebony wood heart with the gold logo and the faux pearl top. And it's been photographed on celebrities, and you got a pair that are in near mint condition. I mean, they're just amazing.
Incredible. And I saw them on her site. So maybe you can share with the viewers about your website.
My website is PetuniaPeacock.com, and I have a few categories of Chanel: necklaces, bracelets, earrings, and pins. I'm getting ready to add another section, which we may touch on later. And I am behind because I've met Christos, so
Yeah. Yes.
most of my energy is going there. But I'm a one gal show. I do everything. I source, I photograph, I describe, I run the computer, I wrap, I ship, I pack, and it's just all me.
Well, when I found your site, I will have to say I definitely stalked it. I know that you sell a lot now on the Covet by Christos, and I could put that information below in the description box when this gets uploaded to YouTube, so that you guys can join in on his live shows because they're so fun.
They're so fun.
I mean, I feel like we're just friends with all these people
Yes.
now, and I know you share live on his show as well. But I know that when I saw these, I was definitely stalking them for a while, and I kept looking at them because they were at the time for sure my biggest investment.
Right.
Slash begging
Right.
to my husband, saying all the reasons
Mhm.
why I needed these heart
Yeah.
heart earrings, but
Well,
they're
you
so.
can count on that, within the past, which we've also chatted about previously, 6 to 9 months, you know, the call for the vintage has skyrocketed, which has sort of just jumped the prices up like crazy. So you, not that you would ever sell them, but you definitely, if you decided to, would get a return on your investment on those.
Well, and that's the other thing with vintage, right? I mean, it's again because there are only so many. The brand isn't going anywhere, obviously, and maybe you can just touch on just I know that when we spoke, just how it's near and dear to your heart, just the sustainability versus kind of the fast fashion.
Yeah, and that's sort of a personal thing for me, and I try and live my life like that. A lot of things in my home, even as far as furniture and cars, I don't always need a new one. I love a story behind something. I love to know where something came from. I fantasize and dream about who might have had it and where they wore it and what they wore it with and what country they were in, and it just gives me all the good feels. And we're not continuing to produce a throwaway society. And if you buy something that's well made, and it's vintage, it lasts forever. And if you get tired of it, you sell it and get something new. So it's a win-win because especially the Chanel brand, was made to last a lifetime or 2 lifetimes.
Well, it really is, and I know that you've had some of the more contemporary pieces versus the vintage, the 70s, 80s, 90s that you've had on your site. And for those that are just venturing into vintage and maybe just happened across this interview, I mean, what sets apart vintage? Like if you had to think about having some of these pieces in your hand and what you've seen with some of we'll just talk about vintage Chanel at this point, but what makes it different?
Uh, it kills me to say this, but it's the truth, the quality. The quality of the vintage is incomparable. It is 24 karat gold plated or ruthenium plated or silver plated. It's weighty. It's made with Gripois glass, which was made by the House of Gripois in Paris, who has been creating Coco Chanel's pieces since since they met, I think, in the 50s, and they don't do that anymore. I don't know what's going on. The contemporary pieces, they're lovely and they're beautiful, and
But there's definitely a difference in weight. Like these
yeah,
are, because I got these from you.
yes,
These are heavy.
because they're glass.
Exactly.
Those are Baroque Gripois glass pearls, and they have that coating on them that just makes them look like real pearls. This is more valuable though, because you can't replace this. And yeah, here they are on Linda Evangelista, styled by Carolyn
CCD, right?
Yes,
No,
and
she calls
photographed by
herself
Stephen Meisel. Yeah, just one of the most iconic images of, the 90s supermodel in Chanel. And that's actually just a Chanel bucket that she that she topped on top of her head. And with these earrings, I mean, have you ever seen anything more spectacular than that? Because I haven't.
No, and they're so simple. And what I was going to say is I'm like a crazy person to find some of my pieces either on the runway or on the internet. And this is an old catalog that's from 1990, 1991. And in here, I was excited to find this. There they are.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
it's nice to be able to kind of date things sometimes. And so that's
absolutely.
fun. And to feel like you have it in print or like an editorial piece or a runway piece. And for those of you that have never had vintage, like Lori said, prices have gone up for sure because they're harder to find, right?
They're harder to find, and everybody wants them. What the market will bear, right? It's
I still
and
feel it's worth it. I
it,
still
it
feel like
is,
the
and
prices are
there
worth it.
isn't. I mean, I sometimes there's things I've been searching for years that I can't find. I can't find one. I have a list of people who are asking for things. One is the necklace that you got for me also.
Yes.
And it's just nowhere to be found. You have to beg collectors to get rid of their
To part with them. And one thing I will say about that, because people can get kind of funny and get a little I'll call it feisty, like kind of wanting things or feeling like, there's a couple people wanting the same thing. And I just do it with a heart of happiness and joy, and knowing that we're not going to have everything, we're not going to be able to get everything, but to really just enjoy the journey of the hunt and to not get
exactly.
anxious or angry about it.
Oh yeah,
Nobody,
I've never come across anything like that. People really being angry, and I've had a couple times where needless to say, somebody will reach out to inquire about something that they're interested in, and 3 hours later somebody else will buy it. So my advice is, if you see something, do not hesitate. And if for some reason you don't get that piece, there will be another to love.
for sure. I have definitely found that to be the case a few times, that I was heartbroken. And the only reason I say that some people can get a little upset is from a friend of mine that sells jackets, and they sell super fast. And she
Yeah.
said that she can sometimes get messages from people that are, upset that they missed it, and to just say, enjoy the journey. This is so fun.
Right.
There's hundreds and thousands out there. Yes, they're harder to find, but that's what makes them even more special, I think.
It is. When you get it and you know that, you've got something that you're not going to see another person wear, and it's something that's timeless, that you'll have forever, that you can wear, to lunch or to a nightclub or a Broadway theater or, a daytime wedding sometimes. So yeah, it's so varied with what you can do with the pieces.
It is. Well, talk about your very first one. I think you're wearing it.
I am wearing it. Was my very first piece. Like I said, I had asked for it for Christmas. I found it. I love it. I wear it all the time. It reminded me of here we go. It reminded me of a snowflake.
Yeah,
And
I can pull up the little
yeah,
video you sent me.
yeah, it's champagne crystals and clear crystals, all set in silver, and you can see how loved it is. If I showed the set, here we go. I think in the back, because I banged it, but look at it. I mean, it's got Chanel, the details, Chanel on one side, Paris on the other. And what I didn't notice until I sent you that video yesterday was that my little tag inside had fallen out.
Yeah, the signature little tag that is what you're talking about, right?
Right. Yeah. And it happens, so just because something does not have an authentication tag does not mean it's counterfeit. Some things that have authentication tags are counterfeit because they're counterfeit tags, but it doesn't bother me. It doesn't in any way hinder the love of my piece. I love it as much today, probably even more today than when I got it. And I wear it with jeans. I wear it with a dress. I wear it to dinner. I wear it to lunch. I wear it for holidays. And I have a few rings. I love large rings, and I kind of, put them on all my fingers.
Stack them.
Yeah.
If I had nice slender fingers, I would do that too.
Well, mine are not so slender and pretty short, but nobody's looking at that. They're looking at your ring.
They're looking at your ring. You're gonna rock it.
Yes,
so how did it go, Lori, from the ring to maybe collecting more pieces and then actually starting your own website and business? Like, how did that happen?
So this was a Christmas present, and then it was probably Mother's Day. You always remember everything about your first everything. Mother's Day or my birthday or something like that. And I thought, ooh, I need a necklace. And I just kept looking and looking and looking. And when you know. And that's what I tell everybody who is, I can't decide. Oh, if I want this one or if I want that one. And I say, if that's the way you're feeling, maybe you haven't found one that you really want. Because different people have different styles, and sometimes it'll look beautiful. And then you put it on yourself and it's just not working. So my second one was my necklace, and that really hooked me. And then from then on, every time it was time for a gift, I would send my husband.
It was vintage Chanel.
Yes, I would like this. I would like this or this or that. And I amassed quite a collection. And then I visited Paris with my daughter, just a girls' trip, and was overwhelmed by the amount there. And then,
oh my goodness, to go back about 10 years and go to Paris vintage shopping. Like, if I had the time machine, I'd probably go back even further than that, but that would be the vintage shops. They're incredible.
Incredible. And then I just over 5 years ago turned it into a business when my youngest child was close to graduating from high school. And I knew I wanted to do something, and I wanted to do something that I loved. Not something that, that I needed to do to have a,
it would seem like work. You wanted it to be fun.
Just for fun. Yep. And I love it. I still love looking at the pieces. I love playing with the pieces. I love talking to people about them. I never get tired. People will say, oh, I'm sorry, for asking you so many questions, and, bring it on, because I could, go on.
I love that. And that's how I feel too. And it actually brings me to another question, which is authenticity. And there's a few things that I'll say with that, because I know that that's probably, some people will be thinking that and wondering that are watching this. And, the only thing consistent, I always say this, the only thing consistent about Chanel is that it's inconsistent. The signature tags are inconsistent. Even within the same year, I mean, they can be very inconsistent. But what I've learned is the more I study and the more I research and the more I actually feel the pieces, the more I understand. So it
Right.
definitely comes with time. So what I would say, and then I'll kind of ask what your thoughts are, but if you're new and you're really wanting, a few pieces of vintage Chanel, buy them from someone you trust that has been around for a long time so that you're not figuring it out yourself to where you make
Right.
an expensive mistake.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the best advice. Um,
I really feel that way because don't you
yeah.
feel like it's just been time and touching the pieces yourself?
Yeah. And, and a long time. It's sort of like going into an antique store. And, the proprietor is telling you this is a table from this century and it comes from France or England or wherever. And you hope that they know what they're talking about. I mean, because there's no way to prove it. I mean, I know if you go into Chanel, and I've had people try that, I've heard they're not allowed to help you um, to authenticate a piece that could be vintage. But to be quite honest, I think most of them aren't
No.
don't know. They don't
Yeah.
know. And it's just through my passion and my love of it and the research that I've done for, a decade and a half. And they're making some really, really good counterfeit pieces. I mean, sometimes, I'm always looking, and I'm not going to name names and where, but
Mm.
just to see what's out there. And a piece may look authentic. I have been fooled, and then I will see the tag and go, "Ooh, nope." Um,
Yes. Because
mm-mm.
you know what it's supposed to look like. And
I know
that's
what it's supposed
why,
to look like, and they all look different. They all look different, which, and I think there's a reason that Chanel has changed it up over the years. Maybe not in the early years. I don't know, but as long as I have been collecting, there has been mounds of counterfeit.
yeah, they have. So I really, really recommend, even if you pay a little bit more to buy it from someone reputable. Yes, you can find a bargain out there, but the bargain could be fake. I mean, if
Yeah.
it's too good to be true, it probably.
Oh, it certainly is. And then, there was, I think it's calmed down a bit. There was this whole sort of emergence of repurposing Chanel buttons and,
Yes.
pieces. And they're also, you can't, you can't you can't get a bunch of authentic Chanel buttons, because people are searching for those for their jackets that have fallen off. And somebody I spoke to, actually, it was my niece over the holidays, and she said, "Look, you'll be so proud. My friend, it's a small business up and coming, and she wanted to support her, and it's a vintage Chanel button repurposed into a necklace." And I said, "It's not. It's not an authentic button." So she
Mm.
paid $150 for something that's worthless.
Yeah, probably just pennies. And this is just where my heart is as a vintage Chanel like lover, love
Yeah,
obsessed, is I hate seeing those pieces taken apart. And in some cases, belts are being taken apart to be made into jewelry. It's just my own personal feeling.
I
Um,
agree. I agree. I mean, unless you have, am working with someone now, who has a bracelet. You happen to know her, and the bracelet is broken, and I've been trying to rack my mind on how to rectify the situation. And in that case,
that's
I
totally different. Yeah. In that
totally
case, you want to make something wearable out of something that's broken.
absolutely, absolutely, especially if it has, sentimental value to it. But yes, but if you have a perfect piece, don't take it apart. Don't, you know,
Don't take it apart to repurpose these beautiful
yeah,
pieces because I
yeah,
mean, there's only so many of them, and with every year that goes by, there's going to be less and less. And since we're talking about authentication, I would recommend getting one of these on Amazon. It's just a jeweler's loop. They're not very expensive. They're very inexpensive. My old 50-year-old eyes need them so that I can see some of these signatures. But like for these old pieces, this is one of the oldest ones that I have. This is 1987. And it just says Chanel on it. It's just Chanel stamped on there. That's it.
Yeah.
Just, right on the necklace itself.
Yep.
Very similar actually to this.
Mhm.
But yeah, so definitely buy from someone you trust, buy from someone who knows, and can guarantee that authenticity, even if you pay a little bit more. Anything you want to add to that as far as?
Well, that you just showed that little loop, which I think is a brilliant suggestion, because if you can easily see the authentication tag, or engraving, chances are that's a tell for counterfeit. Because they can't be replicated the way Chanel does it. So I struggle. I mean, I struggle to see
Well, yeah,
without a
because
doubt.
it's like they're laser engraved. And so it can be very, very fine sometimes, to where
Mhm.
you really do need a magnifying to
You
see it.
do. And if it's a laser engraved piece, over time, just from touching or wearing, that wears down. So again, like I mentioned before, sometimes there are things that are authentic that do not have their tags for one reason or the other.
For sure. Perfect. Awesome. Well, I know we just talked about how, the Chanel jewelry, the vintage Chanel jewelry is beautifully made in France. Some were made in Italy, beautifully plated in 24 karat gold, or, some alloy that, it's beautiful. It's gold. It's
Mhm.
heavy. Even the pearl that's at the bottom of this, it's heavy because it's glass. And then the pieces just tend to be more heavy, but so did a lot of other vintage jewelry. So we want to kind of
Yeah,
talk about that, because, the Chanel is getting harder and harder to find. But if you love that quality, there are some other brands maybe that, I think would be great to introduce our viewers to. You want to talk about that?
sure. Well, I started, to panic a few months ago, because it's really near impossible to come across the jewelry anymore. Not that I don't or can't, but not in the same abundance. So I just kind of became open-minded, but definitely wanted to stick to the European makers, in particular France. And through my research, I discovered a designer, which I'm sure you've all heard of. His name, it was Christian Lacroix. And he was trained in costume design, so his pieces are so spectacular and so detailed. Also made in France, also gold plated, and instantly recognizable, like a Chanel pieces. And here's one.
What years would you say are just like really beautifully made? Like from what
Um,
year to what
you
year?
know, the 90s, still the 90s and the 80s and the 90s, the 80s
Mhm.
and the 90s. Um, you just can't beat them. I mean, I love Chanel throughout the decades, but if you said to me which decade is your all-time favorite, 90s, hands down,
Yep.
hands down.
Late 80s, early 90s for me too. So show
So
us that one. It's
this
beautiful.
one is just, it's spectacular. Right?
Wow.
Let's see.
And it's a choker.
It is a choker, and it's also 24 karat gold plated. It has the Lacroix tag
Mhm.
here, Christian Lacroix, made in France. And I don't know, because I know I'm a bit dark here, but it's got, crystals inset.
Yeah, let me show
And
the close up of that.
oh, you have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oops. Let me pull this back to the beginning. There we go. So there you can see the stamp. And then I think you flip it around and show look at all those crystals.
Yeah. I mean, and if you wear this, I had the bracelet, and that sold, but I mean, look what this looks like on a neck.
Oh yeah, hang on a second. Wow. I mean, talk about, do you know what I love about these pieces? Like this necklace that I have on, that necklace that you're wearing, is you could literally get something, a plain black dress, even a t-shirt type top, like something super simple and just elevate that look by adding something like
Absolutely.
that.
I mean, I love nothing more than a pair of, ripped and ragged jeans, a fabulous pair of shoes, and a really good white t-shirt though. A new one
Yes.
that, nice and white, V-neck, or crew neck. Yeah, and you put a
Put that
statement.
around your neck again. I just need to soak that up. That is gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. And this collector had kept, the bag, the box. This is another tell. The current La Croix does not come in a pink bag. But yeah, here it is. And I'm wearing a vintage Poochie shirt, and it works with this, even,
Yes.
a lot on a lot. It's just fun. And I have on jeans. Not that I'm
It
going
is
anywhere today, but
so beautiful.
it's
Love.
spectacular.
So, anything special about the La Croix? I mean, other than obviously it's beautiful, just to know about that brand.
The quality is on par with Chanel. It's on par with vintage Chanel, as are a lot of the vintage brands, especially the made in France. Givenchy, Yves Saint Laurent. I've noticed similarities between the chains, with some Chanel necklaces and a Givenchy that I happen to have now.
Right. I know we were talking about that. We were wondering if maybe they were made in the same place, some of the same places.
I mean, of course they are. I have no way to prove that, but I would pretty much bet
Well,
my
I know they
bottom.
shared some of the same jewelry designers. I mean, I know YSL, right? YSL. Didn't they have some of the same jewelry designer as some of the early Chanel? Gosens?
No, I don't, not quite sure. I'm not quite sure.
Robert Gosens? Is it Robert
Oh,
Gosens?
Robert yeah, is that, yeah, I definitely,
I
he
think they
was
all
responsible.
kind of moved around, in some of those
They
fashion.
totally all moved around, but the thing about the vintage La Croix from the 80s and 90s is that Christian Lacroix was the designer for the jewelry then.
Right.
Or the designer for everything. He's not so much anymore. He's stepped down, but you are getting his designs when you're buying 80s and 90s fashion
So
jewelry.
La Croix and then Givenchy, a vintage YSL. Those are all just some nice, and Versace, right? You have a Versace
Versace,
one.
yes, he's my one non-French designer. Got to give props to the Italians too. Especially my married one. But yeah, this is one of my favorite pieces, and as because you know me, I never met a choker I didn't love.
Yes. Well, they look
And
beautiful on you.
thank you. And this is a vintage Versace piece, or Versace, if we ever, anybody knows that movie I'm talking about. And I love a logo. I mean, I love that they brought the logos back, which was so, late 80s, early 90s. And to timestamp the Versace, as you're showing. So anything that was made when Johnny was alive has his name on it.
Oh, interesting.
As does this piece. It is stamped Johnny Versace, made in Italy. There's still couture pieces that in the house that are, Versace and things Versus. And of course, the house still stands as a phenomenal brand. But to me, it's really special to have a piece from, from Johnny's era.
Right. From his era.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe, because we didn't really even talk about the one you have on, the Chanel one. Back to the beginning, back to the Chanel, the choker that you have on. I know it's a little hard to see on your neck, but I know you said it's your most worn piece of.
Probably my most worn piece. My daughter has been trying to get her hands on this forever. This is one I bought myself. I purchased it early on in the beginning of my business. And the second I opened the box, I knew it was going in my drawer.
It is Lori's.
And it's just, I personally, I love big big statement pieces. And this is one. I wear it alone. I wear it layered. Sometimes I wear it with one of my chiclets. And it goes with everything. I wear it in the summer. I wear it in the winter. It's traveled to countless countries with
And
me.
look at how gold it still is. Like that to me says something, that
Yeah.
there's plating and then there's plating, and like how many layers of that plating, and that's a 90s necklace, right? So,
Yes.
I mean, it's just heavier plated. And so they last a long time, and you can wear them and it's not like it's going to fade. And I know how
Yeah.
some people have gotten their items replated before. Have you ever replated anything?
I have one trusted jeweler sometimes crystals come out, sometimes the plating fades. I mean, a well-loved piece, but that's an easy fix. And the only issue is excuse me, is over the decades, and even mostly the decades, that the tone of the gold is different in the house of Chanel. So, the 90s, you had the real bold and bright
Yellow.
bright yellow. Some years were brighter than others. And, for instance, the piece you have on is late 80s. And it looks like you could have just walked out of the store with that on. It's pristine condition. And if you take care of them, if you store them, if you don't
don't like have them in real high humidity areas, where the moisture, you want to keep it away from moisture,
heat, sunlight. If you wear perfume, if you take a shower.
It's costume jewelry. You don't want to wear it in the shower.
Exactly. We say fashion jewelry. It sounds a little more high fashion jewelry. Yeah. And the funny thing, the Chanel fashion jewelry holds its value better than the Chanel fine jewelry does.
I believe that. I just feel, I love the stories. I love what Chanel does, especially with what Karl Lagerfeld did, where he had themes. And it was just so fun and whimsical. And, I loved the records and the cassette tapes. And I just love all that, the little lipsticks. And it's so fantastic. And it just has, I don't know, I'm coming up with a loss for words, I guess, in this, but I know you've seen a lot of that as well. Just the whimsy of it.
Yes, and the whimsy, and the drama. And instant icons, everything he did. I mean, to live inside that man's brain, for a day, I can't imagine what that would have been like. And I think also, that's sort of what's happened the last 6 or 9 months, is people have realized that he's gone, and there's not
and they want a part of his genius.
Yes. And the man was a genius. I mean, for instance, the print ad that you showed before, Yasmin, her name, I would bet that Lagerfeld photographed that campaign, because not only did he design and style, he photographed so many of the Chanel campaigns and the print ads.
Just
himself.
such a talent. And I love the bags. I have the vintage bags. I love the jackets. I have too many of those.
Yes, you do.
I mean, I love all of that, but I will say jewelry has my heart. It will always be the vintage Chanel jewelry. And I love that I can style this 1,000 ways. I mean, and yes, you can style the jackets different ways. But again, for those of you watching, I mean, as far as investment and to invest in your wardrobe, that choker you've worn over and over and over again, but probably a million different ways.
A million different ways, a million
different outfits.
Yeah, it's one of my go-to pieces. So, that's what I say, if you're kind of on the fence about something, chances are that's not your piece. That's not your piece. And getting your first piece, I'm asked that a lot. What would you suggest for my first piece? And I always suggest a classic, late 80s, early 90s simple gold medallion necklace, a big one, a little one, you know your style. Um, what I love about the longer ones is that you can double them so you get more than one wear out of it, but
Yeah, where you can wear it longer or you can wear it
or
shorter.
shorter. Yeah.
And I love what you said about if you're hemming and hawing about it. I mean, unless it's the money, but if you're hemming and hawing about like the, oh, I don't know about the piece, it's probably not the one, because when
Mhm.
you know,
You
like
know, you know, you know.
I like, is your heart singing where you just can't even stop thinking about it, or you can't stand
Mhm.
walking away from it? Because if you're like, well, I don't know, and you would be okay the next day without it, there's going to be another one.
There will be another one. Unless you wake up the next day and that's the first thing that pops into your head, then chances are you need that piece.
Exactly. But like you said, because vintage Chanel is so sought after, if you do end up buying it, because I feel, and I'm sure this has happened to you, is your tastes evolve over time. So some of the pieces I bought in the beginning may not be the ones that would make my heart sing now. And then you can sell that to someone else and that's in the market that it's perfect fit for them. And then you can
Absolutely.
find something that's a fit for you.
It is, it is. And chances are you'll make some little money off your
You can reach
sale.
out to Lori and say, "Hey, Lori, you want this?" And she can find a new home for it. Well, any other just parting words to this community regarding, any of the vintage pieces or the vintage Chanel?
I don't think so. I think we pretty much touched on everything. I will tell everyone too, I hope you're sharing your, yes, Lynn, at my Chanel story, because there is no collection that rivals Lynn's.
Oh,
Uh,
I
so
don't know about that, but thank
no,
you.
well, not that I know, honestly, and I don't say things I don't mean. And Lynn has put together looks and recreated. So just make sure you hang on her every word.
Wow.
Um, and she's so giving with her advice and sharing, and she knows what she's talking about. So
Well, thank you, Lori. Thank you. And yes, and definitely share this interview if it's been helpful for you. Definitely share it with your community. Go to Instagram and follow Petunia Peacock Vintage. And then, of course, you can find me at my Chanel story. Thank you, Lori.
thank you, Lynn.